Welcome, everybody. It is Wednesday, the 25th of March, 2020. The world has taken an unexpected turn since last we met. It never quits on us, the world.
Well, you can go in that hammock I see behind you.
Oh my gosh, I have to say we don't like at all. There's a tree house, there's a hammock. Yeah, our yard's looking great. We can't really see much more, but anyway, I'm out in what was the garden shack. So,
Oh,
yeah, we're finding all the corners that we can now that we're all together all the time. Oh, the dog is visiting. Okay, come on in. All right, we have a exciting class that you guys put together. About chapters, and this came from, and we'll do a check-in, but this came from a couple of folks really wanting to understand how, about chapters, sort of where they end, with how they how they end well, how they begin well, what they need to do in between, jumps, transitions, right? Like Jody, you asked about transitions and jumps, and so I think this obviously isn't the only place you do transitions or jumps, but it's certainly an interesting one to look at. So lots of good stuff to look at. We're going to be doing like lots of little short bursts of writing sentences, but they're really kind of prime, juicy sentences that you can then write toward or write away, write from as other prompts, and lots of good things to kind of figure out about the structure of story. Let's go ahead and two things. So this is what I've been doing because I think we could all just like talk for the whole 2 hours about, all of this. But so here's what I've been doing, which many of you know from one of the thing we did together with Angie. But anyway, it's just to put in like 2 words, a 2-word phrase or 2 different unrelated words that kind of capture just where you are right now. And this is also about like just dropping into where you are right now, which might be really different from 5 minutes ago or an hour ago, or, the whole 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it's like, right now, drop into your body and your heart and your writer's self and just tell me, but it can be anything. I mean, this is a place to like show up. And notice I say 2 words and we get the hyphenated word, the 3 words. Writers. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
Welcome. Julie was in the Tuesday class and has moved over to the Wednesday class for the next couple weeks. How are you doing?
Okay.
She has special. I don't do this. She has special dispensation to do this.
Getting bigger by the day.
Yes, she's quite pregnant, and so I think you were pretty aware early on that it was not a good time to be in a group. Like you had that instinctual sense.
Sadly.
Yeah, it's good. You're taking care of, you're already taking care of yourself and the baby, and that's your job. So, so here we are virtually. Kendra also is going to be joining this class and might show up. All right, so we're putting 2 words in the chat. How you're feeling right now? Hey, there she is. I just said Kendra might be.
What's the loudest thing we have in our house?
So 2 words in the chat that state how you are right now. So partly it's a way of arriving, partly it's a way of kind of in a somewhat contained way looking at how do we feel. Hi, Julia. I'm going to copy these because you only see the chat after you come in. And so I'm doing my same thing that I've been doing all week, which is 2 words that, and they don't have to be related or sequential, but that capture something about where you are right now. All right, I'll wait for the last couple. So if you've just arrived, go ahead and put 2 words in the chat. Again, they don't have to be sequential, that express where you are now. All right, and then now if you've been in with me more than once this week, you know my little trick, but I'm like, this is a poem. So here it is. Here's our check-in poem. Make a sourdough starter. Candle sun right. A zombie. Organized chaos.
A zombie.
Grateful, scattered. I hurt. Tired. Grateful. Headache. Not COVID-19. Overwhelmed and stressed. So welcome. Welcome to Craft Class, the Housebound. We're lucky to have built community here and on the waves of the internet.
It's a new word I just coined. Zombie.
What's your word?
Zombie.
Zombie. A zombie. Oh, I missed the pun. That is so excellent.
And so right.
Oh, that's Sue, that is brilliant. I can. Oh wait, hold on. I muted you by accident, Sue, as I muted everybody. What were you saying?
I said, feel free to spread it widely. Let it go viral.
I think there's like a film or film genre, I think, in that. Okay, I did mute everybody at Eleanor's request, and you are still hopefully able to unmute yourself. If you're not, I can see you, so wave at me. All right, here's the next thing. Do you remember what your goal was? We didn't meet last week, and we didn't meet the week before, so it was 3 weeks ago. I don't know, what was different? What was your goal? So here's the thing. You can either check in about your goal or just about writing. Like, how's it going? Are you writing all the time? Have you stopped writing completely? Are you, like, I'm kind of rolling along on my edit, which is, like, I think it's been its own little apocalypse in my life for so long that I just keep rolling. So yeah, so throw in your goals, check in, whatever that really looks like right now. All righty. Hi to Kendra's whole family. She's importing the outside world in. All right, Eleanor, I'm writing 500 to 700 words most days about my experience of the pandemic / shelter in place. Great, also editing my cancer essay. Fantastic. I love that your writing habit sort of was able to like pivot and just, focus on the next thing. That's great. Francis, I'm happy to have a distinct goal and not going on it before all of this, and got going on it, but not God. Before all this happened, I'm revising at least 2 scenes a day, and I'm 2/3 through my second draft. Hallelujah. This is like, we're already working from home. Okay. Aline, it's been a roller coaster. I could have used those 2 words. Last week I had trouble writing, but kept on doing it. Great. And much of it was discarded. Excellent. This week I'm doing better. I actually want to keep some of it. Excellent. This is good. But this is what we always have to do. We write it. It doesn't matter if we discard it or not. Julia, I pretty much stopped except for in craft. Yay, craft. Hard to read too. I've been reading poems, Elizabeth Bishop and Jack Gilbert. Yeah, I've been doing audiobooks, although I am much more picky. I'm just sort of, I don't want something troubling to happen to my characters, that I'm listening, it's like, it's a book, so something troubling is going to happen. So that's hard. Julie, short story and novel edits. Awesome. Jody, nudging ahead very, very slowly. I like that word, nudging. But everything becomes better and clearer the longer I spend on it, although more words. Well, that words are the medium, so that's okay, except that it's going to happen in words. That's even an advantage for a writer. Kendra started a little journal. Awesome. Sue, still rounding out scenes slowly, writing about the same amount as I was pre-COVID, which is disappointing. It should like cause excessive writing, right? The thing is, if you were already working from home or you were able to take your work home, then your life hasn't become less busy. I mean, depending on what kind of incredible social life you had, then maybe, you know, but I know for me, working from home already and then trying to write a book, and then now just having my kids never leave has not made my life more. I spent the first week kind of being like, why haven't I organized the whole house and like deep cleaned it? And then it was like, oh, because I don't have any extra time. Plus I was like panic shopping, which I guess we're not supposed to admit. Like nobody's. It's like, but I was like, because my friend Dorothy said to me like a month ago, like, there's this thing coming, shop. Like she told me way ahead of time, and I still wasn't able to do it. I had my mother-in-law's Costco card for like 10 days, and then Costco got emptied out, and and I thought like she's so on top of it, right? Like somebody who knew to like stock up a month ago, that was really smart. And now it's like, oh, it was selfish. I don't know. It's very confusing to be in the social media world, I have to say. But anyway, poetry is winning out. I see here in the chat. And Catherine, I've reconnected again with my manuscript and hope in the next 2 weeks to formulate it in a somewhat concrete fashion. Great. I'm doing quite a bit of writing to fill holes, etc. Fantastic. Francis, 2/3 of the way through. Is that what you said? 2/3 through. Yeah, I got it. I might have misread it, but I got it. Okay. Well, that's amazing. And just to say, like, you know, whatever's happening is great and is fine. And my big thing is from Angie's suggestion that your goal be the kindest goal possible. So when we set them at the end, that's kind of my current recommendation is the kindest goal possible. And I always talk about giving yourself support. And I know for me, like I am getting online with people and sitting there and writing, you know, mute and write, but it's like that person's, and sometimes like I'll be like, I'll get on and then come whenever you want because I'm an early morning person. But then until they show up, I feel sort of like at loose ends, and then they show up and I'm like, okay, I'm here. And we mute. It's like there's nothing different. I'm in my space, but they're just there and it helps. So that's really works for me. So what works for you? And then, you know, work that in. All right, let's look at your chapter stuff. So this is a little different than what we normally do. But I'm excited about it. And, you know, I think zeroing in on chapters is a great way to look at the ends of scenes, the significant, and it's interesting, you guys, some of you are reading poetry, because in some ways I think chapters come the closest to line breaks, right? Like where do you cut? So in a poem, you do it to kind of bring emphasis to a word, or because a word rhymes with another word. And actually Charles Baxter has a great essay about rhyming action in Burning Down the House, which is an old collection of essays. And so there is like rhyming in prose too, right? Like where something, so, but anyway, so in poetry, you're looking at rhyme, and you're looking at word emphasis and rhythm and all that. And really, and in prose, you're looking at, you know, scene emphasis, character emphasis, the emphasis on a particular moment, you know, and same thing, the rhythms of like, how can I get the reader to like both kind of have a pause here and want to keep going to the next chapter, right? So I think it's most similar in a way to poetry. And also, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I clicked on the link in the email and it took me to the entire craft class handout.
We're on lesson 6.
Okay.
I actually sent it out. Oh no, we're on lesson 5. Sorry. We're on, I'll just put it in. We're on, sorry, that happened with the Thursday class, was like, which is the specific one? And then I sent it to them, but this is
okay. Thank you.
Lesson 5, opening and closing chapters is what it's called. And let me just copy the link into the thing. All right, and there it is in the chat. Okay. Okay. So the other thing about chapters, sorry about my lighting here. Let's read that. The other thing about chapters is, Aristotle didn't opine on them at length. And then we didn't lose part of the manuscript. And then, there's no sort of, as far as I know, there's no poetics specifically of chapters. And it's a little more varied. Like when you ask authors about chapters, they might have sort of ways they feel it out or ways they think about it. But there isn't a sort of, here's the 7 steps or that sort of thing. But again, it's about storytelling, right? It's sort of your Scheherazade, like where are you going to end? And I think we all have the habit as readers, right, of saying, okay, I'm just going to read to the end of the chapter. And then as writers, what we want to do is make them not able to stop there. So that's sort of the game of reading, is like getting them across that gap. At the same time, sometimes it's great to like put down a book at the end of the chapter, take a breath, and know you're going to go back to it. No, we don't write 400-page books to be read in one sitting. So so it's also okay for there to be kind of a conclusion or a jump or that sort of thing. So so what we're going to do, like I said, is we're going to do a bunch of short writing where you're really writing a sentence. And then, if you're a fast sentence writer, then I would suggest writing a few different ones like that are, so for example, we're going to start by writing and the sentence that ends a chapter. And as always, you can work on a specific thing that you're working on, or you can work on, or it might be something new. But what might we're going to look at these different ways that different people have ended a chapter, and we're going to just try it like a line. So if I give you 5 minutes, say you write a sentence, you're like, okay, that's a way. And then you might, if you have a little more time left, write another different sentence that might end the chapter. And then if you're like super fast and you have more time, you might write a third. But and you know what? Remember, the rule is just to write. So if instead you write a paragraph, like that's okay. But what I'm going to ask to see is the sentence that ends the chapter, because that's what we're kind of exploring today. So what I did was I took your examples. And by the way, so we did this with Tuesday and Thursday as well. So if you get curious, they're all in the folder. You can go look at other examples. But anyway, I took yours and I organized them into categories. And we're going to see how the timing goes. But I'm just going to start with one. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to do both ones. We're just going to do, so we're going to do 3 short writings with the endings, and then we're going to look at jumps, how they jump to a beginning. Any other questions about this? All right, as we jump in, please feel free to ask. Okay, so the one I chose as the example is from "We are all completely beside ourselves," and at the end of the chapter is the sentence, "I threw the glass down as hard as I could." So she's standing in the middle of a crowded cafeteria, and there's a whole scene happening, and this is her kind of literally, throwing down the what do you say, the chalice or whatever, right? So it's like, boom, she throws it. So it's an action, and it's a strong action. It's an action that's going to have consequences, but we're not going to see them right now. We're just going to see the action, and that's going to make us as readers, one, surprised. Oh my gosh, she threw down the glass, and broke it, right? Like in the middle of this cafeteria in response to this other person's behavior. So surprise at that action, and curiosity, what's going to happen next? One of those basic sort of chapter questions. And then let's see, Catherine, why don't you go ahead and just read that first, the end of the chapter that you picked from the Roundhouse by Louise Erdrich.
I followed him uphill in the first drops of rain.
So another action, right?
Uh-huh.
My guess, and I haven't read actually this, although I think it's on my shelf, so depending on how long we're here, how long I never leave the house. So my guess is she's made some kind of decision, right? There's some kind, she's been in some way asked, invited, cajoled, or some other way got, right, like made this invitation, and then she's made a choice to do this, something like that?
No, it's a question of the three little boys, they're not really little, they're about junior high age, you know, the age of your kids. And they have just shot somebody.
Ooh. And so who is following who? Whom?
Two of them are following the one who did the shooting.
Okay, so are they going toward the body?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So this thing is happening, and there is a decision right there. Like, what are we going to do? All right, we're gonna go up the hill. We're gonna go find the body, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a great action. It's a consequential action, right? Oh my gosh, they shot someone, and now they're going toward the body. What's gonna happen next, right? And again, these are actions. So we're in the scene, and we're in the scene, and we're doing this. Actually, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have you all just write one action sentence that gives us some kind of consequential action that makes us go, what's going to happen next? Okay? This is like literally a 2-minute, 1-sentence one. In fact, you can put it in the chat. Thank you, Aline.
Elizabeth, I can't hear you. I can't.
Whoops, sorry. Thank you. I muted myself. All right, I put everything back in the chat again because Julie left and the chat disappears when you leave. So it's now back. So Aline, she stole her socks. All right, great. So clearly, there's going to be some kind of trouble probably out of that. And we want to know what's going to happen next. There's a clear action. We're in scene. Francis, the gorilla picked up the binoculars and disappeared into the dense vegetation. That's great. It makes me want to know who's seeing this and is that person going to follow? But I might wonder something different if I had actually read everything up to there. I want to say this, Julie, your sentence here is actually a perfect one, right? I'm going to leave and reconnect on my personal computer because my iPad keyboard isn't working. It's like, will she come back? What? And then the next chapter was, Julie appeared on the screen. Let's see, Sue, he left, slamming the door so that the frame shook. good. We know like that's a, is it a final goodbye? What will happen next? Eleanor, I sit in a trailer outside the main Kaiser Hospital in Walnut Creek where they do CAT scans. It is freezing cold. Nice. That cold, it really brings us to the kind of emotions of the moment. Julia, one of the teens, swung through the kitchen door, and 1 moment later, a few more staggered in. Oh my gosh, what is going on with these teens? What has happened? And what has happened is actually the flip side. I want to say, and I think a lot of the most suspenseful books make us wonder what has happened and what's going to happen. So those are actually like both, for example, in a mystery or we're like, what has happened? We're trying to figure out what has happened and what is going to happen. And that's true usually for any book with really interesting characters who have the hint of a backstory. We wonder what has happened. And I think sometimes we make the mistake as writers because we wonder it so much, we fill it in really fast. We explore it because we're curious about it, but it's really helpful to move that later and to let us wonder what has happened until we can't stand it anymore and then give it to us. But great. So Jody, he had just admitted he had seen Janie minutes or hours before she killed herself or was murdered. Ooh, so yeah, he's just admitted this key piece of information, right? I can hear the da 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 da. So, and it's sort of fun because you can now start playing with this. Like you might play with, he had seen Janie minutes or hours before she killed herself or was murdered. He had just admitted as much, right? So if we want to hit the admitted, we might end there. If it was or was murdered, then I would rewrite, like I would play with it so that the emphasis is on, or was she murdered or something, or maybe this meant, whatever. I couldn't help but wonder. But anyway, so you kind of figure out what's the thing that's going to hit the story, kind of the reader hardest. All right. Bruce approached Grandma. This time it was different. I'm not going to say I'm sorry to you, but to me. Wow. Go Bruce. Or is that Grandma? Wait, who's not going to say I'm sorry?
What's that?
Is it Bruce or Grandma who says, I'm not going to say I'm sorry to you, but to me?
He was saying that to Grandma,
Yeah,
that he
all
was apologizing to himself.
Yeah. Good. That's what I thought. Yeah. So
because he had betrayed himself.
Yeah. Good. So that's a turn, right? So we see this change. Julie, did you get another one in there, or did we? Did you just want to go with the? You want to go with the PC?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Was a little bit distracted by the technical difficulties.
Yeah. No. It turned out you wrote a perfect one. So. All right. Great. Let's look. So then 1B is action with suspense. And so these also are embodied moments, but you'll notice they are ramping up on the emotional suspense with the first one, and what I've coined a dangling reveal with the second. So this is Catherine again, and this is from Water for Elephants. Catherine, will you read that one?
Surely. I lay motionless, savoring the feeling of her body against mine. I'm afraid to breathe in case I break the spell.
Yeah. So it might be I lie motionless, do you think, since the rest of it is in present tense?
No, it's past. I lay motionless.
But the rest, in both what follows and in the next chapter, it's all present tense. So I just wonder if it might be I lie motionless in the book.
I can double check.
It's not a big deal, but anyway, the point is there's this kind of the action of no action, right? Of motionlessness is a powerful one, and then savoring and afraid to breathe, right? In case I break the spell.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's a great moment. That's a great moment of emotional suspense. Right? It's not a car chase kind of suspense, but it's clearly, they're high stakes. Great.
I don't know whether you're familiar with the story, but for him to get close to Marlena was a high stakes conquest, if you want to put it that way.
Okay, great. And I'm glad to know I have not read this book. I know everybody else in the world probably has. How many people have read it? Like Water for Elephants? No? Did you
What?
love it? Eileen read
Oh,
it.
I loved it. It's beautiful. It just goes and goes and goes really fast.
I think she has,
I have never seen the movie,
yeah.
but I read it before the movie came out, and then it was so good I didn't want to go see the movie.
And apparently she wrote her first draft in NaNoWriMo. So there you go. Okay. So so that's emotional suspense. And then Julia, if you will read the chapter ending sentence from Less by Andrew Sean Greer.
There is a second call, this time from an unknown number, but we will never know what it contains, for no message is left, and the intended receiver is already deep in takeoff slumber, high above the continent of Europe, only 7 days from 50, headed now at last to Morocco.
All right, great. So again, that like we'll never know what it contains is such a kind of hook, right?
Totally.
And it's funny because it's like we don't buy it as readers. We're not like, okay, great, I'll just let go of that because we're never gonna know, right? It seems more significant.
Yeah.
And he's missed it, but we know about it, but we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Is that what drew you to that one?
Yeah, well, actually what drew me to this one was the sentence that comes next, because it kept repeating in my head. Months later, I kept thinking of that opening sentence. It would just come to my mind, you know? And I ran back to the book and looked up what chapter it was and checked the ending before, and it was like, oh, that's perfect together.
Oh, fabulous. I love it. Good. Well, we'll get there. But let's do again, just in the chat, this, which is to just do one sentence that is action with some kind of suspense. So somebody, the action they're taking, they're kind of either holding their breath sort of emotionally, or, so there's just a high emotional stakes, or this thing, the dangling reveal, right? There's some new information, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. This is basically the author saying this, right? So it's kind of, it could be, she opened the box and couldn't believe her eyes. It's not always the best technique. Sometimes it's better to show what's in the box and then have us wonder what's going to happen next. But this is really fun to play around with. So play around with the dangling reveal, with emotional suspense. And again, just put one in the chat, okay? All right, Kendra, why don't you unmute and just read your last one and this one. Just read two. Kendra can't get to the chat well.
All right. My last one was let's see. Okay. He tramped through the ivy, poking his nose under leaves and delicately placing his paws in the damp mud. And then, ball lost, looked up at me as though I were to blame.
Yes, good. There's an emotional poignancy to that.
Yeah.
All right, next one.
There were 5 rolls of toilet paper left in the closet.
The suspense. What will happen next? You see how much context can matter? All right, wonderful. Frances, why don't you read yours?
Oh, I looked, I'm sorry. I looked at the guides in horror, wondering if I would ever get those $2,000 plus Swarovski binoculars back.
All right, great. And you could even play around with hiding, like with sort of, did they have any idea how much these, Swarovski binoculars were worth, right? You could end with something like that that makes us, that's like the dangling reveal where we're like, how much are they worth? Unless you're in the know, right? So you can even play around with
the know, so it didn't occur to me.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great.
Yeah.
Just in terms of the dangling reveal. Aline, will you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because it won't let me unmute you.
Okay.
Go ahead and read the next version of the sock.
My first sentence was, she stole her socks.
Yes.
And then the beginning of the next chapter would be, she remembered how important socks were when she climbed the Vosges to escape. But now, what did socks matter in this train to torture and death?
We're actually just still doing endings for a little while.
Well, that's a good ending too.
It is actually. It's actually a great ending. And it might echo back to the earlier chapter where we were all worried because she stole her socks, right? Yeah. But good. Yeah. All right, Sue, you need to unmute too, unfortunately.
So maybe I misunderstood the assignment, but I went with a totally different ending.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's great.
I discovered later that the time of Lisa's death correlated with my conversation with her before.
Nice, good. So we get the kind of the mystery, the mysterious, or kind of psychic connection thing, and we, yeah. And I mean, you could also paint that moment of discovery, like, that what blah blah blah. I was, when she says it, like, wait, that coincides, like it could be a moment of realization, like that coincides. Like here you're sort of narrating it, but you could push it toward action so that it's that kind of a reveal. You know what I mean? Yeah, because it's actually a really kind of powerful one. Good. All right, Julia.
He pushes chips forward on the felt, all of them, all those stacks, and looked up to meet my eyes.
Yeah, nice. That's like there's a dare in that, right? And that's a great technique to try for try writing a dare, some sort of physical action that has an implied dare, an actual need to one up. Good. All right, Julie.
Okay. Actually, staring at it, I decided I'm going to change one word, so I'll just read it the way I see it now. Haley lingered in the hallway, hesitant to walk on the floor and pretend like everything was normal.
Yeah. Good. So we get her. Yeah. And you almost might flip that and leave us with the action, right? Hesitant to walk on the floor and pretend like everything was normal. Haley lingered in the hallway. There's something about giving us that image as the very last thing that might even be more powerful.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Great. Eleanor, and then you have to unmute you. I don't know why. Oh, and Catherine, yours is only to me, so maybe change it to put it to everybody. Okay. Eleanor.
Okay. I want to say this is so unfair. I'm happy after 7 decades in this crazy life. I'm happy now. I've got cancer.
Good. I like the emotion of that and the frustration and the contradiction. Now, if we already know that our narrator has cancer, then you could actually end this on, I'm happy now, right? This is so unfair. I'm happy after 7 decades in this crazy life. I'm happy now because the irony, we already know the irony. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's bitter. It's a fabulous, bitter ending, to a chapter. All right, Catherine. Oh, if you can put yours, Catherine, into the, just so everybody can see it, because it just says to me.
I can't change it where it is.
No, you have to copy and paste it. I can do it. Here, look.
Will you? All right, please.
All right, hold on, because I'm about to send it. Hold on. Okay.
All right.
Oh, I thought I could, and now it's not.
It's
letting
okay.
me.
I'll do it in a moment.
Okay.
I'll just read it.
I'll get Jody's, and then we'll swing back to you. And otherwise, you can just read it if it doesn't work. Jody. Hang on 1 second. Jody.
He knew more than he'd ever told anyone. And as I sat down on my towel watching snow, talking to a young woman who was setting up a table, chair, and umbrella, I thought, how can he just go on like that, chat to someone when he knew?
Yeah, good. And you could also maybe play with trusting the irony that's built in here. So he knew more than he'd ever told anyone, period. I sat down on my towel watching snow, talking to a young woman who was setting up a table and a chair. I don't know, just like, I think if you I'm not doing it right, but if you can just juxtapose his casualness, like give us some gesture, you know what I mean? Or flip it around. I sat down on my towel watching snow, talking to a young woman who was setting up a table and chair and umbrella, and then maybe give us a little bit of him. Is he flirting? Is he, lounging? Is he whatever, brushing sand off his shoulder? And then he knew more than he'd ever told anyone. And then maybe how could he just chat like nothing was, you know what I mean? So anyway, play around with it. I think you've got a great irony there, and I think you can push it so that we feel it by the juxtaposition of those two things more than by being told it.
Okay, right.
There. Yeah, good. All right. Catherine, where did you go? Was she gone? Oh, there you are. Okay, sorry.
I reposted it, yes.
Yeah, sometimes when the squares shift, I get
It's okay. Carlos held his hand, still fearful. The intimate feeling of Felicia would go away and be forever forgotten.
Yeah. And I would play with yours flipping too, because so that you have it's really funny because very often in sorry, it's telling me the connection isn't private or something. Anyway, okay. Very often in the midst of a chapter, I think it's important to give the physical detail or action